Well, thank you, Andy. It happens I did just become a grandfather last March, a year ago March, and it's delightful. But that's being a real grandfather. Otherwise, I prefer to be thought of more in the fatherly role. But anyway, look, I'm delighted to see so many people involved with apprenticeship. It's fantastic, really fantastic. But one of the things about getting older is that you don't have to study history. You just remember things that happen. And I'm unfortunately or fortunately old enough to remember a prior enthusiasm about youth apprenticeship, with governors going to Germany and Switzerland all over the place in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And that upsurge led George H.W. Bush to propose the National Youth Apprenticeship Act of 1992. And then, although that President Bush was not reelected, President Bill Clinton liked youth apprenticeship, even had a program in Arkansas. Unfortunately, as that process unfolded, and the School to Work Opportunities Act became law, it became law with barely a mention of apprenticeship. Another initiative, the National Skill Standards Board, also fell flat. So I think we have to have a little modesty moving forward. Enthusiasm, yes, but realism as well. And we have to be aware of the challenges that we face going forward. Some time ago, I might have only had one or two tables helping me with this challenge, but now we have this whole group here, and it's fantastic. So the first thing is we need a vision. What is that vision? In my words, it's making apprenticeship a mainstream pathway to rewarding careers. We have to brand it as an important pathway to rewarding careers. And I use those words very carefully, rewarding careers. And if you know people that have completed apprenticeships, it's not just the money. It's a sense of pride. It's a sense of mastery. It's being part of a community of practice that make it rewarding. It has to compete effectively with what we have today, which is primarily an academic-only approach. But we're changing that. And then finally, what scale do we want to aspire to? I'm now being modest at 4 million because Ivanka Trump is saying 5 million. And the Salesforce CEO, Mark Benioff, is saying 5 million. So I'm just a piker here. But 4 million, we would have 4 million if we had the average, not of Switzerland and Germany, but of Australia, Canada, and England, 3 Anglo countries that are market-oriented and don't have this supposed Germanic culture of guilds that you need. So how do we get there? What are the key elements? Well, if we look at the key elements from the past and from current successful countries, we find a few key characteristics. First of all, nearly all have government funding, at least in part, for the academic instruction linked to apprenticeship. Second, they all have a kind of branding and way of marketing the program. Third, they all have some oversight beyond the level of the firm. We have some of that in our union programs, but not very much outside that. All cover a wide range of occupations, all have flexibility, and the occupational categories are far broader than our own. We have a system that is probably no higher than 1/10, maybe 1/15 of the German system, of the Swiss system, relative to our workforce. We have 600 and some occupations with apprentices, and then another number of occupations that have been registered that don't actually have any apprentices in them. And they have 350 in Germany and 230 in Switzerland, covering a much broader range of occupations. And why is that? Because they have a broader definition that allows for greater mobility and ability to go on to different adaptability. So what do we need? What elements are necessary for a sustainable system at scale? That's what we want, a sustainable system at scale. So first, we need a kind of effective branding. And that comes from the bully pulpit, from governors, from the president, from Secretary of Labor, who Secretary Perez did his efforts in that respect. So we need an effective branding. But at the same time that that's going forward, we need people on the ground so that when a company sees a video about apprenticeship, or hears the president talk about apprenticeship, or their governor talk about apprenticeship, they have a number to call, and somebody actually answers the phone and knows what they're doing. So we need that to go together. And that's what I call a retail marketing approach, and to reach out to individual companies along the lines that South Carolina has proved so effectively, but also England and Australia have proved effective at. We need a program to develop occupational standards and to maintain those standards, and to have, so that we don't have a situation where you have to go to 22 states. But instead we have what I would call safe harbor occupational frameworks that if you follow those frameworks, you're immediately registered. Okay, there's one point you agree with. That's good. And that involves with making apprenticeships easy to create. Funding off-job classes, I've talked about that. We need counseling. We need a much greater emphasis on counseling so people know what they're getting into, trying things out, and so on. I think we probably need a certification body to issue credentials. The Office of Apprenticeship does that now to some extent, but we need perhaps to up that prestige of that organization. And we need a system for training trainers and certifying that the trainers know what they're doing. So those are the elements, but how do we get there? What kind of incremental steps can we take to get there? So we've already talked about streamlining the registration process with the safe harbor standards. In terms of marketing, we need a lot of effort there. We need to experiment with different incentive systems. It's all fine to have lots of companies sitting around a table and saying how they're going to collaborate, but it's no substitute for each one of those companies making the individual decision to hire 5, 10, 20, 50 apprentices. We ought to have a marketing team in every quality CTE program and career academy program to help them add an apprenticeship component to what they're already doing in career-focused education and training. And we need to, again, build this brand. So I think that expansion at low cost is quite feasible. Remember, we spend now about $34 billion on Pell Grants alone. Much of that money goes for people learning in career-focused programs, and the dropout rates are extraordinarily high. The completion rates are extraordinarily low. In fact, someone said, why apprenticeship now? And the answer that someone else gave, and I agree with, is, well, because everything else didn't work. But so I think if we can use a lot of the existing funding that's going for either training programs or career-focused education programs and shift some of that toward apprenticeship, even just allowing apprenticeship programs to compete on an even basis, we would be able to use a lot of existing funding for this program. So I just want to close with what we ultimately want, which is what does success really mean? It's not apprenticeship alone. Apprenticeship is a means to an end, which is good quality careers, a thriving economy, people that are proud of what they do, people who feel that they have a stake in the country. And I think that what it will mean, and I've studied income inequality, I think it will mean directly a society with less income inequality, less need for government transfers, a society with more workers achieving occupational mastery, high productivity, and pride. I think it will improve the business climate, make America a lot more competitive, and it will greatly reduce the frustration a lot of our young people see as they transition from school to careers. So you're on the right road. Let's keep it moving, and thank you very much.